Listen, we all have guilty pleasures. Personally, mine are Twilight and Come Dine With Me, and you know what? I'm not ashamed of them. Some are classics, but some don't get the limelight. With that, I'm Tilly from What Culture Horror, and these are 10 guilty pleasure horror movies you probably missed. Number 10. 13 Ghosts. Just one of two films directed by visual arts director Steve Beck, the other being the similarly trashy Ghost Ship, which was released a year later. 13 Ghosts is about as early 2000s as horror movies get. A remake of William Castle's not particularly great 1960 movie of the same name, 13 Ghosts, or as it was predictably stylized at the time, 13, like the 13 in the middle, 13 Ghosts, offers up a glossy high-tech retelling of the original haunted house story. Though basically just an impetus to execute a series of increasingly ridiculous set pieces, the critically panned film has nevertheless built something of a cult following over the last 20 years. I reckon it's something to do with Matthew Lillard's always eccentric performance. Even critics who despise 13 Ghosts have generally praised the evocative production design and impressive practical ghost effects, and while the exposition-sodden script often undermines the fun, the bonkers sensory assault on offer ensures this is far more than just another self-consciously edgy horror film from the turn of the century. Number 9. Piranha 3DD. Admittedly, the best thing about this movie is its title, which kind of confirms what everyone expected anyway. The sequel to 2010 surprise smash hit Piranha 3D is basically more of the same blood and boobs mayhem that worked last time. Again, in 3D. Though there's certainly a law of diminishing returns here, given that neither the gore nor the nudity are as creatively implemented as its predecessor. It is nevertheless a sequel that moves fast and throws everything in its repertoire at the screen for 82 utterly chaotic minutes. It's got an opening sequence in which Gary Busey is torn apart by a swarm of piranhas, David Hasselhoff chewing up the scenery as a howlingly on-the-nose parody of his iconic Baywatch persona, a piranha that interrupts a sex scene in a hilariously nauseating fashion, and a deeply disconcerting amount of child death. But come on, how bad can a movie be if it's got a piranha that learns to walk on land? I rest my case. Number 8. Stay Alive. 2006's Stay Alive may have been near universally panned by critics upon release, but there is an entertainingly scuzzy throwback quality to it, nodding to classic evil video game movies like Brainscan and David Cronenberg's Existence. The premise is simple. If you die in the titular video game, you die in real life a few minutes later. Though there's little in the way of grace or intelligence to William Brent Bell's horror, and respected actors like Jimmy Simpson, Wendell Pierce, Alex Creed, and Frankie Muniz would probably rather scrub it from their filmographies, it is a textbook example of a movie that's thoroughly enjoyable in its badness. Even back in 2006, this film felt pretty dated. For context, it's the same year that Saw 3 came out, but it's clearly made by people who actually enjoy video games rather than being a completely soulless corporation-driven vehicle. You can never call it genuinely good though. Number 7. Jennifer's Body. 2009's horror comedy Jennifer's Body, penned by Diablo Cody shortly after her Oscar win for Juno, has had a bit of a struggle finding its target audience. The film was initially marketed to horny teenage boys as a vapid horror flick in which Megan Fox plays a succubus who eats people while wearing very little. While that isn't an unfair descriptor of some of the movie, there's a lot more going on than that in Cody's script. Especially in light of 2018's #MeToo movement, Jennifer's Body has been re-evaluated for its feminist qualities in portraying the common experiences of teenage girls, forced to contend with toxic masculinity while attempting to find their way in the world. Slickly directed by Karen Kusama and cannily acted by Fox in an impressively self-aware performance, it may not be the unsung masterpiece that many claim it to be, but it does have plenty of gore, sex appeal and black comedy to make it well worth a watch. Number 6. John Carpenter's Vampires. One movie rarely mentioned when discussing the filmography of John Carpenter is his 1998 Western vampire flick, Vampires. James Wood stars as vampire hunter Jack Crow, alongside Daniel Baldwin and Cheryl Lee, in a shamelessly lightweight genre effort where story and character are concerned, as Carpenter proves far more interested in style, tone, and loony action. While few would hold it up as one of Carpenter's true classics, it is a supremely enjoyable film thanks largely to Woods' larger-than-life performance and the entertainingly pulpy mood fashioned by the director. This is a movie where the antagonist vampire Valak literally rips a guy in half with his bare hands, for God's sake. Between this, the eye-wateringly beautiful cinematography, sharp visual effects, and Carpenter's banger of a score, this is a dumb movie that knows exactly how dumb it can be, while also getting the job done. Number 5. Zombievers. Nobody who sits down to watch a movie called Zombievers should be under any illusion as to what they're getting themselves into. And while it's easy to dismiss such a film as a piece of sub-asylum trash you'd expect to find in a truck stop bargain bin, this horror comedy about a fleet of nubile teenagers being attacked by zombie beavers is Okay, it's fun. I'll say it. Wasting little of his 77 minutes on fancies like storytelling and character development, director Jordan Rubin manages to deliver a gory, lightning-paced good time that's totally in on the joke. The riotous one-liners are myriad, the gore and creature effects are genuinely persuasively terrifying, and it's loaded with knowing references to franchises from Jaws to Die Hard. It's a quintessential midnight movie through and through, totally aware of its own trashiness, but actually delivering a high-effort rendition of a low-effort premise. Sleep on it no longer, my friends. Number 4. Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. Blair Witch Book of Shadows is truly one of the strangest films ever made. Rushed into cinemas just 15 months after the Blair Witch Project became a veritable pop culture phenomenon, Book of Shadows boldly and admittedly bafflingly ditches the groundbreaking footage format of its predecessor for a more conventionally narrative sequel. But writer-director Joe Berlinger at least deserves some credit for not simply rehashing what came before, as the 2016 threequel more or less did, and tried to do something different. Yes, Book of Shadows is aggressively 2000s with its overabundant nu metal soundtrack, but it's also an earlier example of the meta-horror sequel purporting to take place in our own world, with the central characters of Blair Witch 2 actually being interested and fans of the first film. There's no denying the film's messiness, in part due to the studio insisting Berlinger re-edit and reshoot portions of it for a more conventional horror experience, but it's still an ambitious, somewhat misunderstood sequel. And it certainly didn't deserve its 5 Razzie nominations, including its win for Worst Sequel or Remake. Number 3. Pieces. It's hard not to at least have some respect, however reluctant or begrudging, for a movie that's tagline is, "It's exactly what you think it is." And indeed, J. Picker Simon's 1982 cult slasher film Pieces delivers precisely what it advertises. Attractive female college students being hacked to pieces at the behest of a murderer who is using their body parts to create a human jigsaw puzzle. Yeah, it's that kind of movie. The script won't be winning any awards not called Razzie, but Pieces is a nonetheless gorgeous, bewildering experience in style, focused almost entirely on its memorably lurid murder sequences, shot with an uncommonly artful eye. Entertainingly sleazy and impossible to accuse of taking itself too seriously, Pieces is an uncrowned trash classic that's still a joy to behold almost 40 years after it first slithered into cinemas. You'll probably want to shower after watching it though. Number 2. Idle Hands. Rodman Flender's 1999 horror stoner movie Idle Hands may have been enthusiastically panned by critics and failed to make a dent at the box office, but over 20 years later it continues to live on as a much adored slice of gonzo schlock. Though undeniably even as both comedy and horror, charm goes a long way, and Idle Hands boasts it in excess, largely thanks to a likeable ensemble cast. The premise? Stoner Anton Tobias's life is turned upside down when he finds out that his right hand has become murderously possessed. This is just the start of what could modestly be called a wild ride, filled with ridiculous gore, outrageous slapstick, and a multitude of 90s touchstones, such as a musical cameo from The Offspring. If you're looking for crystalline and consistent internal logic, then not the movie for you. But if you're able to vibe with its Mad Libs-esque approach to plot and incident, then it's an endearingly stupid cinematic gem to be enjoyed. Number 1. Wrong Turn 2. Dead End. In a basically miraculous instance of a straight-to-horror video sequel improving upon its theatrically released predecessor, Wrong Turn 2 Dead End is a shockingly fun time. If expectations were understandably low for a DTV sequel to 2003's modestly successful yet totally forgettable cannibal horror flick Wrong Turn, Joe Lynch's energetic direction makes the most of the admittedly bare-bones script. The glorious opening sequence, which sees American Idol contestant Kimberly Caldwell hacked in half with an axe, really sets the tone for a ridiculously fun ride of a movie. Sure, its reality TV parodying plot has basically aged like milk, but when you've got the man, the myth that is Henry Rollins kicking cannibal ass left and right amid lashings of creative bloodletting, do you really need anything else? The 4 direct sequels may have sucked to varying degrees, but in years before direct-to-streaming movies were commonplace, Dead End proved that the non-theatrical horror sequel could actually be worth a damn. It ain't high art, but it sure is entertaining. And that's our list. What other underrated horror movies do you feel slightly ashamed for enjoying? Let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to like and subscribe and swing on by our channel again if you want to catch more creepy content. I've been Tilly and this has been What Culture Horror. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to keep on looking after yourselves, and until next time.